Hey everybody, I'm Eddie Trunk, and I am happy to be here to introduce to you a couple of good friends. We have Mr. David LaGreca and Mr. Don LaGreca, and they are here to announce that they are starting a brand new YouTube channel, and it's going to have a flagship show called It's a LaGreca Show, and they are here to tell us all about it. And I'm happy to be here with two guys that I know very well, and I'm a fan of each of them, to hear all about It's a LaGreca Show. Guys, how you doing?
Oh, fantastic. I can't believe you're doing this for me. It's so amazing doing it for us. You're such a talented guy, and to be able to launch this whole thing, we couldn't be more appreciative. And thank you for giving this opportunity to talk about this great venture. I've worked with my brother, but never as equals or co-hosts, right? I mean, my brother was my producer. He was my board op. He's been my brother forever, of course.
Nobody cares.
But to be able to work with this guy and to do a LaGreca show, right? Dave, anybody that listens to us on the Michael K show or my brother's show, Busted Open, they know that I know sports and that David knows wrestling, but they don't understand like what it is to be a LaGreca and the things that we're into. We've got eclectic tastes. We're into different things. We argue, we rant, and we wanted to be able to do a show where we won't have a program director telling us to move on. These are subjects where we can actually talk about what we want to talk about.
Eddie, the only reason why we're doing this show is that Don has his name on the show. That's the only reason.
Is that too much to ask? Is that too much to ask?
Well, I was going to ask you, so everybody knows Don from the world of sports, Michael K show, Rangers. Everybody knows you, Dave, from all the stuff you do in wrestling, Busted Open. What's the common ground, besides being brothers, what's the common ground between the two of you? What do you both agree on?
Well, I mean, two things. One, we're very well endowed. And then the other thing is that we both love metal music. So I think those two combined will make for a fun show.
I don't know how Dave knows that, because there's never been a situation where I would have any idea. But we love metal. We love music. We love movies. We love sitcoms, and we love to just talk about all the things that are going on and doing it in an entertaining, fun way. I mean, it could be breaking down an Odd Couple episode. It could be talking about the death of Eddie Van Halen. It could be just talking about just growing up and the things that we don't get a chance to really discuss. It'd be like parachuting into a phone conversation that we have, because once we get all the niceties out of the way, or how are the kids, how's the family, we end up getting into some debate about music or movies or just general conversation, right, Dave? And to be able to do it in a show for an audience is going to be fantastic.
Yeah, and to answer your first question, just ask your first three girlfriends. But yes, I totally agree with you that I think with the music, there is a lot more common ground. And I think the other thing is that we're extremely opinionated and we're loud.
See, that's perfect. The best compliment that anybody's ever paid me is that I got an opinion on everything.
Yeah,
and it's the same with Dave. You're never going to hear us say, well, I don't know. Even if we don't know, we're going to have an opinion that's entertaining and loud on the fact that we don't know. And that's what we're about, and that's what makes it so much fun. That's the way we grew up together in a house that you kind of expressed how you felt. And that makes for really entertaining radio, television, whatever it ends up being.
And the other thing, too, the reason why we wanted Eddie to be a part of this is because, like us, he's not a shill. Like, he's not a shill for a particular band or for a company or a brand. He gives what the fans are thinking, what's in their heads, and that's what we do on a daily basis. So it's the perfect combination.
Right, but Eddie had that. I remember, this will be a perfect example, Dave, is that when Eddie had the show on VH1, he did like top 5 albums, second albums that were better than the debut album. And he forgot Sad Wings of Destiny by Judas Priest. I couldn't let that go. I had to call him and I had to discuss with him how he forgot Sad Wings of Destiny from Judas Priest.
As you should.
That's the kind of thing it's about. It's like we never let anything go. These are two people that never lose arguments because we never allow the argument to end. And that's what it's supposed to be about.
So I just lost a lot of respect for Eddie after that. But other than that, yes.
Understandable. It's very understandable. So for the people wondering the subject matter of It's a LaGreca Show, safe to say nothing's out of bounds. It's going to be sports. It's going to be music. It's going to be movies, TV, whatever's on your mind that day.
Yeah, because Don always has to talk about sports. I always have to talk about wrestling. Now with this venture, we could talk about anything that's on the table.
And it's got to be fun. You know, we're not going to get into religion. We're not going to get into politics. We're not going to get into anything that's going to cause any kind of contention. It's going to be all about just having fun subjects that we can argue about. But at the end of the day, we still get along with each other, right? I mean, unfortunately, we live in a time where by not letting things go, people get out of hand. It's going to be fun. It's a fun conversation about topics that we both love. We may disagree about them. We may argue about them. We might rant and rave about them, but it's still just supposed to be fun.
Oh, and everybody's bored and they got nothing else to do. So why not just click on
it's
it?
Not a thing. I mean, I got twins.
I mean, that's basically it, Eddie.
When my wife falls asleep, the twins fall asleep, and I can't argue with myself, although I have.
Oh, try coming into this house. You're in the long LaGreca house. But
well, let me ask you this. So a common bond between the two of you is your love of metal music. And even though Dave does the wrestling stuff, Don, you're known for the sports stuff. That is definitely a common bond between you. Starting with you, Dave, where did it start for you with metal? What was the roots of it for you?
From Don. I mean, he's an older brother, so he came back. He came home with Van Halen. He came home with Black Sabbath, and then he graduated to bands like Venom. So, like, I would say, like, the biggest influence for me when it came to music was Don, because I kind of just listened to what he listened to, and then I went down my own road. So, yeah, I mean, the one thing about metal music, Eddie, and you know this, it's like the soundtrack to my life. There's other things that I listen to, but it always comes back to metal.
Yeah, what happened, Eddie, is growing up, David and I'd be in the backseat of the car, and my dad would be listening to that old WHN, listening to country music. So I grew up on Elvira, and so when I finally started to get to school, and I remember I was in 7th grade in St. Catherine's in Glen Rock, New Jersey, where I started to meet people that were into Rush and into Van Halen and into AC/DC and into Judas Priest. And it opened up a whole world for me. Like, I didn't know any of this existed because it wasn't coming out of the speakers when my father was driving the car. And then when I got to college, then I got introduced to bands like Slayer and Venom and Flotsam and Jetsam and Merciful Fate and King Diamond. And I'm like, I can't believe this music is out there. And Trog Keller, who used to run ESPN, he's retired now. He asked me, like, what's so great about metal? And I said, you know what metal is? It's like every song builds to a crescendo. No matter what music you're into, whether it's classic rock, there's that great guitar solo, or if you're into classical music, there's that one moment where the music is such a high fever pitch that you get forced out of your seat. Metal's like that all the time, from the second the song starts till the end. It's the best part of music, and I just love it. And I love the fact that it wasn't commercialized. I love the fact that MTV didn't play it. And that's what made it just so much fun, because I felt like it was something that was speaking to me. And to introduce it to my brother was the coolest thing.
And the other thing is nostalgia. So every poem I ever wrote to a girl was either a Kiss song or some kind of ballad from a metal band. And when I banged Karen in the backseat of my 79 Dodge Aspen, I was listening to I Remember You by Skid Row. So it all comes full circle.
I'm trying to say you're listening to Venom, black metal, or something like that. That would
be a completely different experience, wouldn't it?
Depends who I was dating it.
Yeah, it really did. It's Venom. I discovered Venom.
So that would be safe to say. What were you saying?
I was going to say I discovered
Don?
Venom by going into the back of Record Town in Willowbrook and finding it in the imports. And discovering that and listening to At War with Satan, which was the entire first side of the album, and just falling in love with it.
Yeah, that was even too extreme for my tastes. But it sounds like there has been some mutual influence from the two of you guys. Like Don, you clearly influenced Dave on the music stuff. But has Dave influenced you, Don, on anything in life?
Yeah, well, because this may not seem like that to Dave's audience, but growing up, he was the buttoned up one. And I always admired him and just being the guy. Like, I was a little wild and crazy sometimes, but like just just to see how focused he had to be when he was growing up and how into things he became. I remember he had this marble notebook that was always filled with all the things he was interested at that time, you know, whether it was the Yankees, whether it was wrestling, whether it was Cowboys football or whatever, and how into and focused he was at the time. Now, he always move on from things, have an interest in it and kind of move on, but just how dedicated he be to that cause at that particular moment. And then when he finally found his groove with wrestling, he just knew how to put his entire self into that. And I always admired that about him. And I think I've tried to take a lot of what he brings to the table into what I do now.
And here's the thing, Eddie, he says buttoned up. I was just smarter because my brother's not. You're nuts. I mean, this is a guy that we've had arguments. He has physically broken my leg because of an argument.
That is so out of context.
That is just completely
we
the
were
truth.
we were
having
wrestling
an argument. You ran after me. You grabbed me by the leg and pulled me down the stairs and broke my leg.
So you're listening to Michael K too much. We were having some horseplay on the stairs, and I didn't know when to let go, and I dragged you down the stairs and broke your leg, and I apologize for that. But I do lose my temper. We couldn't play badminton in the backyard because I'd break the rackets. We played Blades of Steel on Nintendo. My brother scored an early goal, figured out how to win the face-off and just go in a circle where I couldn't take the puck from him, to the point where I picked the Nintendo up and threw it against the wall.
So
but
no more Blades of Steel after he took the system and threw it against the wall and it shattered because you lost. You can't stand.
Let me ask you.
I'm a sore loser.
You have a problem, Eddie. You have a problem.
Let me ask you this: is there such a thing as a blanket LaGreca fan? Like, have the two of you found people that the show's called It's a LaGreca Show? I mean, that just gravitate towards the LaGreca isms that you both share, which to me would be somewhere rooted in anger, for lack of a better word.
Let me start, Dave, if I may. What I find that people that enjoy what we do is because we're just open and we're real. I mean, you know, Eddie, in this business, there's so many people that do not want to let you into their world, right? They want to just keep people at a safe distance. Michael K had the best analogy about Derek Jeter. It's like Derek Jeter's a guy that will talk to you through the screen door. He won't let you in. He'll talk to you, but it'll be through the screen door. We let you in. You know, and I don't care what people know about. I don't hide anything. Anybody that listens to my show, they know my wife's name. They know my children's name. They knew where I grew up and the things that I like and that I don't like. I think we both let people in, and I think people warm up to that because they know where we're coming from. There's not an ounce of anything fake. There's nothing but humility. We all realize that we're very lucky to be in this business. We worked our tail off to get here. Nothing was handed to us, and we let the audience in. I call the people that listen to the Michael K Show, I think David feels the same way about his audience, that they're family members. They choose to listen to us, and I think they really know us. And when you know somebody, you kind of root for them and you kind of hang on their side of it. So I think that's what kind of makes us a little bit different.
Here's the thing, Eddie. At the Busted Open 10-year anniversary party, my wife's name is Violetta. I let the fans that were in attendance taste my wife's pierogi. It's tasty. It's wet. It's full. I mean, it's fantastic. That's how close I am to my fans, is I let them taste my wife's pierogi. Not every man's going to let their fans taste their wife's pierogi. That's how close I am to my fans.
That's a hell of a commitment.
I can't say that's well said, but it was said.
Who would you feel would be the perfect listener for It's a LaGreca Show? Say somebody's watching this now and they don't know Busted Open. They don't know the Michael K Show, but they want to know, should I get invested in this? Who are you looking for? Who are you trying to reach with this?
I'm trying to reach anybody that just loves like music and movies and TV and just has opinions on stuff. Because the thing what we're looking for, right, Dave, is just somebody that's like, you know, I had that conversation with my buddy just the other day. Like, that's when I feel like I hit a home run on the Michael K Show, is when I bring something up and somebody calls or tweets me and says, you know, my buddy and I brought that up the other day. Like, just an example, like, oh, that movie's overrated. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, like Die Hard's a Christmas movie. You know, that type of
see, I had that opinion, Eddie, before it was a thing, that I thought Die Hard was a Christmas movie. David disagrees. That could be a show,
It
but
came
it's
out
going to
July
be,
15th. It's not a Christmas movie.
you know, a Miracle
Christmas
on 34th
movies
Street
don't
also
come
came
out
out
in the
same
middle
month.
of July.
But that people can relate and say, you know what, that's a conversation I had with my buddy, or I had with my father, or I had with my son, or I had with my uncle. And that's what I want. I mean, that's what I think that since they know us or get to know us, they can have some fun with that kind of stuff.
I honestly,
let me throw
maybe
this
I
one.
forgot your question, so I can't answer it because I completely forgot your question. But I'll go with Don's answer. It sounds like a good one.
Well, the question was, what sort of audience are you looking for? Who's going to gravitate towards this show? But I'm going to tell you, to me, it sounds like, and this is somebody that I would fit this audience because it's what I've always done in radio. And you mentioned my old TV show, but you know, no PC nonsense. No thin-skinned people. Throw it out there, mix it up, be honest, be objective, give everybody a chance to have their say, but come with strong opinions.
Yes, that's what we want. We want passion. We want opinions. And I think anybody that has that is going to like this show.
All right, Don, let me ask you this. If you had to pick music or sports, where are you going?
I'm going to go with music. That might surprise a lot of people considering how into sports I am, both as a fan and making my living. But I don't know what I would do without music. Could I live without sports? Well, we found out what that was like during the pandemic, right? We find what that is every time our season comes to an end or our team loses. But music is there all the time. I can't think of what I would do without hearing my favorite song. One of my favorite things to do, and what I miss most during this pandemic, is getting in a car and driving to work and listening to tunes and listening to my iPod or listening to, you know, your show on Sirius XM and just hearing music. It's too important to me. I could never live without music.
Dave, wrestling or music?
It's wrestling. And I'll tell you what, it's pro wrestling. And I'll tell you why, Eddie, because with wrestling, you have music. Some of my favorite songs are wrestlers' entrance themes. I mean, Kerry Von Erich coming out to Tom Sawyer. The Road Warriors coming out to Iron Man. Kevin Von Erich coming out to Stranglehold. Chris Jericho coming out to Fozzie's Judas. That's my playlist right there. So for me, it's pro wrestling.
But Don, being a hockey guy, you know, there's a ton of obviously rock music played during those games, cranked out in those arenas. So you get a little taste of that in your end of the world as well.
I do, and it's great because especially when you go out west, like out in LA, where you'll hear Rage Against the Machine and you'll hear Slayer. I think that's pretty cool. It's funny you mention hockey too, because this is an analogy that I always make with hockey is that hockey's kind of like the metal of sports, right? It's not mainstream. You kind of have to hunt to get it, but the people that are into it are so diehard. So when I'm at a hockey game and I hear a Slayer song, I hear, you know, Rain and Blood in the background during a commercial break, during a stoppage of play, it's like my world is just like colliding together because it's two of my favorite things.
Any sport that's played on ice is terrible. I mean, cold. On ice, of all the things you can have a sport performed on ice.
I don't understand where that's
real quick here though. So Dave clearly doesn't have a love of hockey. Don, I've never known this about you. Do you have any sort of love for pro wrestling?
No, I'm not 12. If I was 12, yeah. You know, but the second something becomes scripted, I mean, I watch it and I say to myself, God bless him. He's made a living out of it and it's fantastic. But I don't see anything that anybody above the age of 12 would have interest in it. But
Eddie, it took him 12 minutes, but he finally said something funny.
Well, wait a minute. It's not funny. It's factual. You know what you say is, I don't understand why you'd play something on ice. I don't understand why a person in tights doing something scripted is why I would be interested in. I have substance to my answer. You're just throwing out BS. These guys are skating, man.
Final question, because this is just such a nice teaser for what people are going to get starting December 7th. How are you guys going to know that this show is working beyond people listening, watching? What's going to tell you this is connecting and working?
You want to go for it, Dave? Go for it.
You don't have an answer, so I'll do it.
No,
when one of us,
I don't know if I want to do this anymore, be honest with you.
When one of us have a heart attack on the air from screaming and yelling, that's when we're going to know that the show is working.
No. this is how we're gonna know. Because how are you gonna know if you have a heart attack? Then you're not gonna know.
Well, you'll know.
Unless you survive the heart
Well,
attack.
you'll know that.
I'll go to your gravesite and tell you. I'll pray to you and tell you that it worked out. No, this is how I know it's gonna work. Social media, because we're gonna want you to be interactive. We're gonna want you to respond to what we're doing. And this is how I know something works on radio. I'm sure you go through it too, Eddie, and Dave on your show. It's like we do a top 5 or we get into an argument. I'm going to want you guys to tweet and respond to that. And when I start see it blowing up, then I know it's going to work. If we do a show that didn't really touch the people, Twitter's going to be silent, right? But if we do something that people are really going to argue and get into, our Twitter's going to blow up. So, at Don LaGreca, at Dave LaGreca, that's when we're going to really be able to know, right, Dave, that it worked. Because if you're like we are, then you're going to want your opinion to be out there, and you're going to be definitely tweeting at us.
When a half-naked woman is screaming my name on TikTok, then I'll know that this show.
There's almost no shot now of the show working. I mean, I think you've set the bar way too high.
That's a bar pretty high, yeah.
Yeah,
that might be too high.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Guys, we're out of time. I appreciate you having me. I guess this is sort of the inaugural It's a LaGreca Show, and I've been happy to help kick it off with you. So I want to remind everybody to check it out on your YouTube channel starting on December 7th. I wish you the best of luck with it. And thank you so much for having me on what is unofficially, I guess, the first episode.
Well, but thank you, because we're both huge fans of you. You're nothing but professional, and I consider you a good friend. So the fact that you're involved in this is just tremendous. And I'm hoping that you can join in our arguments and be a guest on the show as well, because we're definitely going to use you and your expertise as much as possible on this show.
Yeah, we appreciate the time. You could have shaved, but we appreciate the time. Thank you, Eddie.
No, I'm working on this. It hides the 30 I put on from COVID. On the double chin, I'm more chins than the Chinese phone book right now, so I'm trying to hide.
He wishes he can grow hair.
I'll see you guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Eddie.